All right, let's dive right in. Today we're taking a look at one of India's banking heavyweights, Axis Bank. We're going to dig into their latest annual report to really break down their game plan for what is an incredibly competitive market.
You know, the Indian banking scene is a real battleground. You've got the legacy banks, the private players, and a whole swarm of scrappy fintech companies all fighting for your business. So the really big question is, how does a giant like Axis Bank manage to not just survive, but actually stay on top of that mountain?
Well, it turns out their big answer is actually pretty simple. It boils down to just three letters, GPS. And this isn't about directions. It's the core framework that guides pretty much every move they make. So what does GPS actually stand for? It's growth, profitability, and sustainability. You can kind of think of it as their strategic blueprint, right? Growth is all about getting bigger, more customers, more reach. Profitability is making sure that growth is actually making money. And sustainability, well, that's their long game, their vision for being a responsible, future-proof bank. Let's tackle each one.
Okay, first up, the G for growth. For Axis Bank, this isn't just a one-lane highway. They're hitting the accelerator on two fronts, totally dominating the digital world while at the same time pushing deeper into rural India.
I mean, just look at this number. Their grip on digital payments is, well, it's massive. A 33.3% market share in UPI. Let that sink in. That means Axis Bank is powering 1 out of every 3 UPI payments in the entire country. That is a huge digital footprint.
And they're not stopping at UPI. They're a real heavyweight in the credit card market too. Thanks to a pretty significant acquisition, they've now locked down a 14% market share. And this isn't just about swiping cards. It's about owning a really critical part of how people spend their money.
So you take that digital muscle, you add in the credit card dominance, and what do you get? A massive customer base. As of early 2024, we're talking about 59 million customers. That's not just a big number, that's an incredible foundation to build on.
And the crown jewel of this whole digital strategy, it's their open mobile app. You don't have to take my word for it, just look at the user ratings. A 4.8 on the Apple App Store, 4.7 on Google Play. That's not just good for India, that's one of the best-rated banking apps on the entire planet.
But here's the thing, their growth story isn't just a digital one. They're making a huge push into the heart of the country with this Bharat Banking initiative. They're going after that massive, often underserved, rural and semi-urban market. Which leads to the big question, does all this growth actually make them money? That brings us to pillar number 2. Okay, so on to the P, profitability. Because look, you can have all the customers and all the market share in the world, but if it's not hitting the bottom line, what's the point, right? So let's see if the strategy is actually paying off. And wow, the numbers here really do tell a story. Just look at this trend. A few years ago, we're talking about a net profit of around 6,600 crores. Fast forward to now, and it's over 26,000 crores. That's not just growth. They've basically quadrupled their profit. That is some seriously strong performance.
But of course, it's never a perfectly smooth ride. On the plus side, that profit growth is stellar, and their asset quality is fantastic. Their net non-performing assets, that's basically the percentage of bad loans, is super low at just 0.33%. That's really healthy. But they are facing some major headwinds that the whole industry is dealing with. Things like compressed net interest margins, the squeeze on the profit they make between loans and deposits, and just a general slowdown in how fast people are taking out new loans. So yeah, real challenges to watch out for.
All right, let's wrap up the GPS framework with the S, sustainability. And this isn't just some corporate buzzword. For them, it's about building a bank that's ready for the future, one that really thinks about its impact on the world. And they are not shy about this at all. This is a direct quote from their report. They're not just aiming to be a player in sustainable banking, they want to be a catalyst for environmental welfare. That's a pretty bold mission statement. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. We're talking over 48,000 crore rupees loaned out specifically to projects that have a positive impact, whether that's environmental or social. This is where the talk turns into real action. And they're even breaking new ground here. Check this out. They secured India's very first blue loan from the International Finance Corporation. That's a $500 million loan dedicated entirely to financing water and sanitation projects. That's not just following a trend, that's leading the way in green finance. Okay, so we've got the GPS strategy. Growth, profitability, sustainability. It sounds pretty solid, right? But every plan has to meet the real world. So what's the reality check? What are the big risks they're staring down?
Well, it really boils down to three big things. First, competition. It is absolutely fierce out there, not just from other big banks, but from all those fast-moving fintech startups. Second, regulations. The RBI is always making adjustments, and a new rule can change the entire game literally overnight. And finally, the big one, the overall economy. Things like interest rates and how the country's economy is doing, those are huge, unpredictable forces that are totally out of their control.
So that's where we land. Axis Bank has this really clear GPS to guide them. They're making these big, bold bets on digital, on sustainability. But the road ahead is definitely not easy. It's packed with competition and a ton of economic uncertainty. So the big question we're left with is this: will their GPS be enough to steer them through the storm and keep them at the top of the Indian banking world? That's something we'll all be watching.